Old school RuneScape has evolved a lot since its inception in 2013, and along with it, clients for the game have evolved too. And other than your basic XP tracker, high score lookup, loot tracker, and price lookup, there's tons of plugins for RuneLite that can make your gameplay that much more enjoyable. Today, I'm bringing you 20 of the most useful plugins that you may not even know exist, as well as some special mentions that didn't make the list. Let's get into it. So first up, we have the NPC Aggression Timer. You see these lines here? Basically, I've been in this area for over 10 minutes, which means that as soon as I step out and then step back in, NPCs will start being aggressive to me again. And it's really useful. You can change the color of the lines you want if you want, but basically it tells you where you need to go. And it also tells you down here how much time you have until NPCs are unaggressive. It's useful if you're trying to lose aggro somewhere, or if you're trying to, have aggro and you want to get it back. You don't have to run all the way across the game to get your aggro back. You can just run to sometimes even just a few squares and you'll reset that aggro timer. Next on our list, we have the Menu Entry Swapper. Now, this is a plugin that I believe is on by default, but I could be entirely wrong. It is built into the RuneLite client. It's not one you have to get off the plugin hub, but this one is actually insane. And recently they made some updates to it so you can use left click. I was going to shout out a plugin in the plugin hub called Left Click Dropper. However, they added it to the Menu Entry Swapper. So right here, you go to your inventory, for example, you can configure your shift click or your left click. So if I configure my left click to Versanaza, to cast bloom, to drop, to teleport, and then save it, now when I hover and I left click, I can do all those things. I can also configure the shift click, for example, if I want to go to the features of the Maxscape. So when I go to left click, it goes to teleports, but if I shift click, it goes to features. And it's got so much utility to it. On top of that, stuff like clicking the banker when you left click, that is actually part of the Menu Entry Swapper. If I turn that plugin off, now it's talk to banker, it's talk to Grand Exchange Clerk. On top of all that, there's also stuff in the bank with the Menu Entry Swapper. You can go ahead and go into your bank and you can set it so that in the UI swaps, you can set it so you could shift click and it'll shift to either the X or it'll go to the the all. And so if I shift click all, I can use that for my pouches. That's an insane thing. That's like really good for if you're rune crafting or if you're trying to pull a bunch of something out of the bank. You don't want to mess with having all because maybe you want to have one so you can click on like a stamina when you're trying to rune craft. This also applies to other things outside of the bank, such as swapping the options on your birdhouse runs. And the customizable left click can also be used for things like if you're doing any 3-tick actions, you can set your left click to be the items, but then your drop to be teak logs, for example, or whatever 3-tick action you're doing. You can also change your fairy ring so that the left click goes to your last destination. There's so many things that this plugin has. I cannot believe that people play without it. And one final thing the Menu Entry Swapper has is when you're buying or selling something, you can set it so you could shift click and it'll do the amount you want, whether it's 50 or 10 or 5 or 1. You could shift click and you'll buy 50 or you'll sell 50 of that item at once. It's really good for Iron Men, especially if you're trying to sell a bunch of blood runes, for example, if you're trying to buy a bunch of packs of runes or whatever it is you're trying to buy or sell. It's super, super useful for that. Now, this next one may not be for everybody, but if you don't like certain sounds in the game, but you don't mind some sounds and you like to hear some sounds, there's actually a plugin combo called Annoyance Mute and Visual Sounds. I'll show you an example right here. If I click on this rock and I turn on Visual Sounds before I do it, but I also have Annoyance Mute off, when I click on this rock, you're going to hear 2454. That's what's there, and 2455, which is the ending of that action. Let's say I don't want to hear that. I simply go into Annoyance Mute and I type in those two numbers, 2454 and 2455, and I won't hear them anymore. Same with this mining. I hear 3600 when I mine the essence. I'll keep the essence on, but I'll turn those two off and show you an example right now. The Visual Sounds is really useful because it can tell you pretty much every sound in the game as you're trying to get rid of those sounds. And what you can do is you can just put it down here, holding the Alt key, move that interface down, and you're able to see what different sounds are coming out of the game. For example, if I press Piety, we know Piety is 3825. We know turning off Piety is 2663. That's useful for the Annoyance Mute because those sound codes can be used to basically mute individual sounds that you don't like, but keep every other sound. So right here, I'm gonna go click on this agility course obstacle. I'm gonna climb the rocks. I turn my volume up all the way. That's why I did a bunch of zeros there. And you're gonna see, as soon as I click on this obstacle, there's no sound. It still tells me the number, but you don't hear anything. And to prove that my sounds are still on, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click this essence. And as soon as I actually get a rock, you're going to hear that sound that comes from the rock, 3600, I believe. See, it's very, very useful. Look, we know that hitting a bat, it makes the sound of 294. and 293 is the sound of the bat dying. It's so good for certain individual things that you like doing. Let's say you're doing a skill for extended periods, but you don't like hearing one certain sound, you don't mind hearing the other sounds. You can get rid of that. Super useful, and it's really nice quality of life to not have to hear certain things and be able to kind of customize what you want to hear. Now, I obviously couldn't make a video on RuneLite plugins without giving a special mention to this next combination. There's either the GPU or the 117 HD plugins, which look at how beautiful HD looks. Honestly, 117 did such an amazing job on it. Both have massively enhanced people's enjoyment. But we also have to include the camera plugin, which is built into the RuneLite client, and how you can use it with combination of either GPU or 117 to be useful and not just make the game look and feel nicer. Now, if I zoom out all the way here without the camera plugin on, you know, I can see a decent amount, and if I go like this, I could see an okay amount. But if I turn the camera plugin on, all of a sudden I can instantly see so much more. I can zoom out more. And the way you do that is you go into the camera setting, you expand your outer zoom limit to the max, which is 400, and you can like basically just see a whole lot more. There's also the vertical camera, which is kind of nice for if you're doing something that requires you to click on very specific tiles, although I don't use that very often myself. And then if you go into the regular GPU plugin, not just the HD plugin, you have the same feature of being able to zoom out as much as you want. And one really useful part of this is that recently you've been able to click on blue text objects from very far away as long as it actually shows up in your camera. So for example, I can see the Venerate Dark Altar here, but not only that, I can also bind with the Blood Altar from here, which is kind of nuts. Like the fact that you can do that from that far away is so crazy to me. Now you can't do it here, obviously, but you can also click here and it basically becomes a one click. Now my map changed, so I can't even see the Blood Altar from this specific angle because it's moved me in this direction instead of being like a triangle. But if I click over here, I can still do a one click and basically get almost to the Blood Altar entirely. I'll show you real quick. And this is useful for rune crafting, agility, birdhouse runs, farm runs, and I'm sure it's useful for a lot of other things as well. Pretty much anything with a blue click object that you can see in your field of view in your map that loads when you zoom out and have the camera plugin at max outer zoom, you can click on it. And it's just so good. After that one single click, it brought me here. And from this spot, I can click the Blood Altar, and it basically is 2 clicks from venerating to clicking on the Blood Altar, and you're literally done. That's it. That's all you have to do. And you're making blood runes. That's really useful if you're playing multiple accounts, if you're multitasking and not necessarily, you know, focusing on your character. So many uses to it. And one reason I personally don't play on HD, even though when I turn it on right here, it looks so beautiful, is that I think a lot of people who like watching HD don't mind watching the normal, you know, non-HD, but people who do, you know, have something against the HD plugin because they just don't like how it looks, they won't watch HD. Now you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but after seeing some polls made and different things, it seems like that's kind of the way people view HD, is that if they like it, they don't mind seeing regular, but if they don't like it, they're not going to want to watch HD at all. Now, you may have noticed at the very top of my screen, you see the FPS counter. It's way higher than your standard 50 FPS that you get on Old School RuneScape. If you go into either GPU or into the 117 HD, there is a checkbox to unlock FPS, and it'll basically try to maximize your FPS, which is very noticeable when turning your camera. It looks a lot smoother. Other than that, I haven't really noticed that much of a difference, but it may be worth unlocking. Moving on from those amazing plugins, another one that I really like, but I haven't really actually been using much myself lately, although I did use it before, is the Interact Highlight. It'll basically highlight an object, and you can change the color if you'd like it to be a different color, but basically it'll highlight whatever object you're trying to click on, or an NPC. It'll highlight the NPCs as yellow and objects as blue by default, but I believe you can change those colors, and it doesn't highlight stuff that's on tables, but it can be really nice. I kind of like it because it'll let you know, like, hey, you are going to click on that thing if you click on it. And whenever you click on something, it does automatically go red by default. Just a cool little plugin. Also doesn't highlight players, but I kind of like it. And yeah, I don't know. I figured I'd include it in here. Speaking of highlighting stuff, the next set of plugins are all used to indicate and highlight different parts of the game, so you know where you are, where click boxes or tiles for things are, and what you're clicking on. So for example, we have the ground markers, which you can right click and shift to mark a tile. You can also label that tile. For example, let's say you have multiple accounts that have Monkey Madness 2 done. You can't remember your route. You could just simply write main for the mains route, and you could type iron for the irons route, etc. It's also really useful for stuff like Theater of Blood and other PVM where you want to know exactly where you need to go or where you need to avoid. Then we have the tile indicators, which is very useful, especially if you're at the high end level. things like Sepulcher or things like Chambers of Xeric, or if you're just trying to be as efficient as you can turn on the current tile, which if you click, it'll show your true tile, because as your player walks, your player can only actually move the animation one tile per game tick. But if you actually click somewhere, your character gets to that destination way quicker than it says. So if I click here, even though it takes 2 ticks for my animation to show up, I'm instantly there 1 tick later. So it can sometimes help you for things like that. And it's just really nice to have if you're doing something where you need to know exactly where your character is. On top of this, the tile indicators also has things like the hovered tile, so you know where to click. Let's say you're maybe thinking you might be clicking on this tile, but you have your mouse here. You're actually going to be clicking on this tile. And so you'll know with the hovered, if you're trying to get better at, clicking where you need to click to, having the hovered on could be useful. I personally don't use it, but I can see how it has utility. Then we also have the destination tile. If I click over here, that gets highlighted, and you can change the colors for all these things so you know where you're going. Let's say you meant to click here. Oh, well, now you fix it. Basically, you know, oh, I needed to go to this square, not that square. And it's just really nice for that. I like using that one. That's pretty much the only one that I use for tile indicators, but I can see utility for the other two. There are also a couple of plugins useful for indicating where objects and NPCs are, and those are the object markers and the NPC indicators. Now, if you zoom out here, I'm doing the Dale Essence just to show you this. You can do it for Dense Essence. You can do it for other stuff too. Sometimes there's objects that actually move. So if you were to only mark it when it's Dale Essence and not when it's Dale Essence without the wind going around it, it'll actually show you which one you need to click on. So let's say you're AFKing and you just kind of zoom out. That way you can just go and click on whichever one you're trying to click on. And there's options for changing how you want it to look. And also you can do stuff like ladders, doors, etc., bank chests, different things like that. If you're just trying to mark an object, you simply turn on object markers, shift, right click, and you can mark it. That way you can kind of see exactly where it's at. The NPC indicators is also really nice if you're trying to find a certain NPC, or if you're trying to avoid a certain NPC, you can mark that. And you can also do it to mark, let's say, a big boss, like let's say Verzik. You can mark Verzik's all the tiles of Verzik by turning on the highlight tile. You can turn on the southwest tile if you're trying to avoid or get to the southwest tile for things like bursting. You can highlight the whole, which is basically all the clickable squares. Or the way I like doing it is I just like highlighting the outline. That way it's just a little more noticeable, and I know exactly where I can click on it. Very, very, very nice to use both of these, as well as the other things like the ground markers and the tile indicators. Moving on, we've got another plugin that basically does the opposite of highlighting stuff. It hides those things. You can hide players, you can hide NPCs, and you can hide yourself even, and that is the entity hider. If I turn on the entity hider and I choose to hide others, all of a sudden I'm the only person in the room, even though you can see on my mini map there's like 50 people here. I can hide others 2D so I don't see their prayers. I can hide their pets so I don't see the Soul Wars pet, for example. If I turn that on, I can hide NPCs. I can hide NPCs prayers. I can hide myself. I can hide people that I have ignored, or I can hide people on my friends list or in my friends chat. I can hide attackers. I can hide projectiles. The entity hider is very nice. Even though it has niche uses, it's very useful for things like Blast Furnace, or if you're at a busy GE or just a busy place and you don't want to see players, basically to make your own gameplay just a little bit easier or less laggy, for example. It's also really nice for screenshots. Let's say you're in a busy area, but you want to get a nice screenshot of Blast Furnace for some reason. Let's say a thumbnail or something like that. You can basically hide everybody. You could also hop to a world that's not a Blast Furnace world, but just for the sake of example, you want to hide like all the NPCs in the area so you can get a nice screenshot of the area, you can do that. I use that all the time for thumbnails. Our next special mention that should be included in here, even though it's maybe not the most useful thing, it can be useful for some people, is the default world. Let's say there's a world that's really good ping for you, or a world that, a lot of your friends play on, or you're in a clan that has a default world. You can basically just turn it to a certain world, and every time you launch RuneLite, it'll automatically launch on that world, so there's no need to click on the menu. This next plugin, which is Screen Markers, is very useful for a lot of different things, such as certain bank skills, buying a lot of items in a shop, and more. The way you add a screen marker is simply click the plus at the very top, and then you go basically to whatever you're trying to mark. You go into the, you got to press X on that if you're trying to do it in the bank. For example, let's say I want to have a screen marker for deposit inventory. Let's say I'm doing a bank skill. You can go right here. You can increase the thickness. You can decrease the thickness. You can also decrease it to 0, but you can mark it as a highlight. I kind of like that visually, but it's kind of up to you. You can customize as much as you want, and you can change the color around however you want to do it. Let's say you want kind of more of a nice like red toned kind of like light color. There you go. All of a sudden you got that, and now you got that marker. It's very, very nice to have screen markers, especially for bank standing skills, but I've also used it for other things, as I previously mentioned, and more. Let's say you're trying to get good at PKing, but you're not very good yet with where the barrage is on the ancient spellbook. Well, now all of a sudden you've got yourself a screen marker, so when you're PKing, you can do your switches and you can click the barrage right there. You know where you're clicking before you even go to that F3, and it'll help you with basically getting better at that. And it's useful for other things too. I can think of that being a practical use, and buying stuff in shops. I've used it a ton for bank standing skills. The next plugin we have here is the PvP Performance Tracker. Speaking of basically knowing where your barrage is, I figured I would include this one here. The PvP Performance Tracker is very nice for knowing basically a lot of data when it comes to your fights. Now, it's not 100% perfect, but it's actually really useful. So as you can see here, I only prayed right 6 out of 19 times in that entire fight. That guy prayed right 22 out of 33 times, which is very good, compared to what I did. He also did 381 damage to my 166. This is deserved damage. I deserved to do 165. They deserved to do 381. They actually did 455, and I only did 133. I got 5 out of 7 magical attacks. I should have only hit 4. They got 10 out of 13. They only should have hit 9.5, whatever it is. I did 8 successful offensive prayers out of 19. Info isn't there exactly, but as you can see here, basically, it shows a lot of data when it comes to PvP. And if you're trying to get better at it, this plugin can be very useful for just knowing some data, even though, getting better obviously comes down to you doing a lot of practice. This will be useful for knowing what you're doing wrong and what you need to work on. I could not make this video without mentioning the ground items plugin, which is the plugin you use to see basically stuff on the ground. If I drop 1 GP there, it doesn't show up. If I drop the golden apron here, it shows up as white. And if I drop my twisted bow, it'll show up not only as yellow, but it also has a loop beam, which you can set to have on or off. You can set the threshold for all these different things. And let's say, for example, I don't want to see golden aprons on the ground. If I simply press Alt, I can basically hide it. Let's say I really want to see them and I want to know exactly when I get one and have it be yellow. Look at that. And that one doesn't have a loop beam because it doesn't have the threshold that I have set. There's so much you can do in the ground items. You can also collapse the menu. Let's say I want to drop, let's see if I kind of have some kind of, let's see here. Let's grab out 10 redwood logs. If I drop these 10 redwood logs here, they don't show up until a certain value, but you can collapse it so it shows up all as one item. That way, if I have, a golden apron on the ground, it's not covered by 8 sets. If I turn off the collapse, now it's like all the way down here. If I collapse it, boom, now it's like the second item there instead of being 8 sets and then the golden apron. I think most people know about this plugin, but it was definitely worth a mention for those of you who don't, or maybe don't know about certain features of it. Next on the list, we have anti-drag, which is very useful for obviously switching items, whether you're PKing or PVMing, or if you're just basically like, I don't know, doing some click intensive skilling like 3-ticking. I have mine set to 11, but this is really up to you and how much you drag your items. So like right here with 11, I can still drag items, but if I turn that super high, it takes a lot more effort to drag an item. Like if I left click there, it's not really going to drag. I have to really want to drag it. That'll basically just like slow down the delay of the drag. If you turn it off, basically you can just like drag how much you want. I like having it at 11. That's my personal preference, and it's totally up to you and how much you drag your items. Following the anti-drag, we have another one that's super useful for if you're trying to buy stuff in shops. I use it all the time for if I'm buying like a bunch of gold ore, or if I'm buying like, I don't know, feather packs, for example. I'm thinking of stuff on my Iron Man. Or if you're just trying to find a world for, let's say you're doing something that, has competitive resources like mining or Slayer or Hunter. The World Hopper lets you hop faster. The default controls here are Control Shift left and Control Shift right with the arrow keys. I personally like those, but if I wanted to go hop worlds here, I'd have to go over here. I have to click this manually. And let's say I open up an interface once I actually do hop to buy something. Let's say I open up an interface when I buy something, like let's say open the bank up or something like that, right? That's just pretend that's like a, I'm trading something. As soon as I close it, I have to close it, go over here, and then click again. But with the World Hopper, it's super simple. You close out an interface with escape, and then you press Control Shift left to go down a world numerically, or Control Shift right to go up. It makes world hopping a lot faster, and I would highly recommend it if you do anything that involves any of the stuff I mentioned. Also very useful for PKing. If you're trying to find, let's say you're trying to find some prey, you're trying to hop around and res or something. Control Shift right, boom, now I'm on 306 instead of 305. It hops me that much quicker, and it can be vital for if you're trying to, compete for resources or get somewhere very quickly on a certain world, or if you're just trying to hop around and buy stuff. You can also restrict it so you basically don't have certain areas that you go to. You can select a specific area, or you can just select all the regions. I don't know how to unselect it. Oh, the right reset. Okay, there we go. So I could set it if I only wanted to go to USA worlds, for example. Super useful for that too. But again, very nice to have a very quick way to hop worlds. I'm going to switch over to the group Iron Man for the rest of this. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but obviously there might be some spoilers. Although these plugins are super useful, not just for irons, but also for mains. So keep your eyes peeled for a couple of plugins that could be really useful. The first one we're going to do is the Kourend Library. Now this one is obviously more centered towards Iron Man accounts, but if I go closer to the library, I have the plugin turned on, as you can see. And as I get here, you can see all these white markings here. And one thing I really like about the Kourend Library plugin, if you just scroll down ever so slightly on the size of your client like this, you can see all the books and all the locations as soon as you find one. And in the settings here, you can see that you can show some stuff, not show some stuff. And it's very useful for if you're doing library at all to get yourself 77 rune crafting or get some magic XP, or if you're just trying to find that teleport. As soon as I go over here and find a book, I'll show you exactly how it works. Oh, and good timing. We did find a book right here. So now it knows basically where some books are. You have to basically find a couple of books, and the library does rotate every so often. But this is very useful for basically continuing to run through the library as you're trying to do more. And you'll basically just, as soon as you find a couple of books, it'll know the location of every single book. So right here, I search for this. I make sure that the transvergence theory is here. And if it is, boom, it's not there. So it knows to basically fix that. And now it knows the location of every single book. So for example, I know that in the Northeast, let's see if we can find a Northeast one here. Let's just find the center top floor one. Center top floor is teleportation incantation. That's the one you use to actually teleport to Kourend. Once you read it, it knows exactly where it is. And if I go over here and I click on this bookshelf, I will get that book. And it's kind of, niche, obviously, but it's definitely worth mentioning for those of you who are maybe trying to grind that out and don't know about it. Next up on the list, we have the Quest Helper plugin, which is all about completing quests and diaries. They actually have now 10 of the 12 diaries. I think it's missing maybe Kourend and Kebos. Let's see here. Diary. It's missing 2 of the diaries, but it has 10 of the 12. They're working on it more and more. And I think there's a team of like 30 or 40 people who have all contributed to that plugin. Let's see here. Night of the Theater. It'll tell me not only where I need to go, who I need to talk to. It'll have some, on-screen overlays. But if I go into the bank here, it's going to have different things for different stages of the quest. Up here, this is one of the most useful things. Let's see. So for this is recommended items. This is for the first part of the quest, the second part of the quest, and then it just has my actual bank here. So useful for not only quests, but also for diaries. Let's say I want to go do the RD Elite diary. Now it's got me all the items I need to do the RD Elite diary. Very useful, obviously worth mentioning. I think most people know about it, but if you haven't heard about it at this point, there you go. And remember that if your RuneLite doesn't have these plugins, all you have to do is go to the plugin hub, search for that plugin. Let's say you want to get the Quest Helper, and then boom, you got Quest Helper right here. You make sure you install it. Obviously, I already have it installed, and then it's going to be built into your RuneLite. And every time you launch RuneLite, you're going to have that plugin and be able to use it. It's worth mentioning that in the plugin hub, all these plugins are made by players who love RuneScape just like you do, but they are verified by RuneLite devs to be safe. So you can be sure that when you get a plugin on the plugin hub, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about that, and just get those plugins to help your gameplay. The next 2 plugins on this list are the Banked XP and the Banked Memory. Banked XP basically goes off of what you have in the bank, and there's a lot of different customization you can do. Let's say I don't think I'm going to turn my current Mahogany logs into Mahogany planks. I can choose to ignore it or unignore it, and then boom, it'll adjust how much XP I have banked. It'll tell me right there what I have in the bank. It says I have about 92 banked, and I need 600k XP for 93. If I was to turn all my current logs into planks, let's say I want to ignore the actual ones I have and just go off of what planks I already have because I don't have money, for example. Look at that. It says I can get to 90. You can do this for all the different skills in this list. So let's say I go to smithing, and let's say I don't care about iron ore. I don't care about the current ores here. I just want to know about the gold ore, only gold ore. And you can also choose different things for each individual activity. Let's see, I have goldsmith gauntlets. Boom. It'll know exactly what I can do there. Super useful for knowing how much XP you have in the bank for mains or for irons. And then moving on from that, another bank one, which I found out about because of Group Iron Man. Alkin told me about this, Bank Memory. Let's say Alkin's like, hey, do you have the Dragon Hunter Lance? And let's say I'm out fishing or something. I'm not at the bank. I can go into my bank thing and be like, oh, I do have the Dragon Hunter Lance. My bad. Let me go to the bank and put that in there. Instead of going to the bank, checking, and then having to deposit it, I know I've got it. Or let's say you just don't know what you have in the bank. You're like, how many Renars do I have in the bank? Oh, look at that. I have 86 and I have 28 there. As soon as I go into the bank here, every time you open the bank, even if you don't go to the tab specifically, it'll do a little memory log and it can save multiple different banks for different accounts. So let's go to Zulu's bank. How much coin do I have? It just says coins. Probably because last time I logged off, I had all my coins in my inventory. Let's say I want to know if I have any clue scrolls in the bank. Oh, look at that. I've got all those. The banked memory is super nice for all different uses. If you want to know how much of something you have, or if you even have it at all, I find it very, very useful. To show you this next set of plugins, I'm basically going to use my current setup right here for, let's say I wanted to go blackjacking as an example. So there's the bank tags, but there's also the bank tag layouts. If you guys know what that is, see all these tabs up here? These are your standard bank tabs, but you can actually create a lot more bank tabs if you wanted to for different activities. Let's say I want one specifically for Slayer. There it is. Or for herb runs, or for making, I can't remember what this is. This is blood runes. I don't even remember what this is. Or let's say you want to do some agility. So let's say I want to make a new one right now with my current setup. I'm going to call it blackjacking, right? I think I already have one, but let's just make a new one. Now, what you do is you can preview the auto layout. It'll take not only what you have dragged into that tab, but also what you're wearing and what's in your inventory. It'll create a layout for you, and then boom, you're good to go. Now you can go into the bank tag layouts here, and you can set it up so it does or doesn't create duplicates. I have duplicates checked, but for some reason it didn't actually make duplicates of the bruise. It might be because it's a stackable item. I don't really know, but look at that. Now, all of a sudden, let's say I accidentally just, I don't know, deposit everything. Or let's say I've done something else and I want to go blackjacking. Well, instead of just having to like search for rogue or go to like 5 different tabs to do stuff, I simply scroll down to my blackjacking tab, grab out all this stuff, and then boom, I'm on to that activity. It's very quick and it's very useful for basically if you're just trying to get to your next activity and you don't want to waste any time. Boom, I can grab all this stuff, do that. Now I just pull out these brews and I'm good to go. I can go blackjack. It has uses for all activities in the game. PvP, PvM, skilling, you name it. You can make a tag tab for pretty much anything. Make sure you get the bank tag layouts as well though, so you can get a nice layout instead of having your bank tag obviously just kind of gross. This, if you have bank tag layouts off, it's going to be like all different things like that. So much nice. I figured because I'm doing a birdhouse run while recording this, I'll show you guys right now. There's so many different timers and things you can do for tracking stuff. There's boss timers. There's timers for different respawns of stuff. The stun timer, cannon timer, stuff like that when it degrades. But there's also the time tracking, which I use for basically doing birdhouse runs and stuff like that. So I know if I look over in that tab, I'm like, oh, is my birdhouse run ready? It is. I'll go do it right now. And look at this. I also have a herb run ready to go, but I'm going to finish recording this video so that you guys can get all the RuneLite plugins. This is not a group Iron Man video. This is a RuneLite plugin video. And as we just did that birdhouse run, another plugin that I really like that's on the plugin hub is the loot logger. There's so many settings you can do here to enable a side panel for it or not save it. You can have it basically do a lot of different stuff here, but all it does is it tracks different logs of different things. So right here, all the 507 birdhouses I've done, I know exactly how many things I've got out of it. Let's say I want to go and check on, I don't know, let's say Rex, because I've done some Rex. I've done 34 Rex kills. I haven't got anything in my name, but I know exactly what I did get because I was tracking it with the loot logger. Let's take a look at my Wintertodt, for example. I did not track it until I got the loot logger plugin. So right now it says I have nothing, even though I have a couple of hundred or like 100 and something Wintertodt. If I had had that plugin on, I would know exactly what I've had. So it's very nice to have this plugin on. I would highly recommend turning it on so you can track stuff over time. It also tracks stuff for Slayer. So let's go to, I don't know, let's see Greater Demons, for example. Where are those at? Greater Demons right here. It's logged 1,200 kills there, and you can see exactly what I've had. It's cool to see, you know, it keeps track of that, and, you know, whatever useful information you want out of that, you can have. So let's say Bloodveld, for example, 364 kills have been logged for Bloodveld, but that's not the mutated Bloodvelds, is it? Where's the mutated Bloodvelds at? That's what I wanted to look at right here. I have killed 3,000 of them. I've gotten 15k blood runes. So now I know, hey, if I want to know how much I've had in total, I got about 50 blood runes per kill. 5 blood runes per kill. I can't do math. Listen, man, it's early in the morning. It's 6 a.m. I'm recording this video. I get my math wrong sometimes. All right, comment down 50 blood runes per kill or something. Add that to your comment. Edit your comment if you want to make fun of me. But Get yourself the loot logger. It's so cool for just being able to track stuff over time and not have to really think about it. Because sometimes when you close RuneLite, the current loot tracker doesn't really save unless you're logged into RuneLite. Or if something happens to corrupt there, at least your loot logger will save that stuff. You can also go to your current session data, which will basically show all the stuff you've had since the last time you closed RuneLite. I'm not going to scroll down because I don't want to spoil something for my next group Iron Man video, but leave a like so that I can be motivated to make that. Our next plugin, which I've found specifically useful for Deadman or for doing stuff that's risky on the hardcore, such as going to the wilderness for a quest. I haven't done any clues on this account yet, but if I was to do any in the future in the wilderness, I would definitely have player indicators on. So let's see here, player indicators, just like that. I can have it. So let's say on next release, for example, I use this so I could see where my friends were, so we could be making sure we're kind of in the same area. Or if somebody wasn't doing something, I can call them out for lacking. But you can also show other people, and you can show them as any color you want. I choose red because obviously other people are, we want them to be enemies, you know what I mean? But player indicators is super useful. You can basically have it so you can show it over the player's head, or you can just not have it show over their head and only show on the mini map. That one's very useful for like wilderness stuff, like just out of range here. I can barely see, but I can still see that there's somebody in the corner of my mini map. So I'm like, oh man, I should log out or I should run away if I'm in the wilderness, for example. It's really useful for just like an extra little kind of notification on your screen that somebody is in the area. On top of all the plugins I mentioned, there are plugins for specific activities. For example, there's the Mahogany Homes one. If I go over here and I choose an adept contract, not only will it tell me exactly right here, so I don't need to read that dialogue, but on top of that, it'll show me all the different things once I get to that house that I need to repair. So it's really nice. It also, there's the plank sack plugin along with the Mahogany Homes plugin, and it'll basically show you how many planks you have in your plank sack. I didn't bring a hammer and saw, but for the sake of showing you this plugin, I'd recommend it, especially for Iron Men who are doing a lot of Mahogany Homes or completionists who are trying to complete it. It makes things like this a lot nicer, and there's other plugins for other activities that you can look up in the plugin hub. I have one final plugin to mention, which is probably one of the most useful but also most underutilized plugins, and that is the RuneLite plugin itself. Inside of RuneLite, there is a setting or a plugin called RuneLite, and if you go into these settings, there's all these different options here, man. You can set up different notifications along with the idle notifier. I personally don't use this, but you can set it so basically it flashes on your screen when something happens, such as a level, or if your prayer drops too low, or your HP drops too low, or you're about to get logged out. You can set that up. The overlay settings, you can set up the size of the info boxes, which is this stuff. Let's say I want them bigger. I can make them bigger. Let's say I want them smaller. I like them at 26 personally, so I leave it at 26. That way, when I move it over here, holding the Alt key, I can kind of fit it in this pillar column area. But you can make it bigger or smaller. You can also change the color of that overlay. Not that overlay specifically. Actually, can you? Oh, that did just change. Interesting. I guess it is that overlay. That's cool. I didn't even know that. See, I'm learning stuff. That's cool. I kind of like it, kind of like darker gray. That's cool. Okay, anyways, I'm getting distracted by my own discovery here. You can have it so your RuneLite doesn't show your display name in the title. So when you load up right here, I see how it says sub to Zulu or it doesn't say sub to Zulu. You can set that. That's kind of cool. You can also set your RuneLite size for your game by default. Let's say I want to have it at this size, 1024 by 576. Boom. It'll remember that, and you can always go into your RuneLite setting to make it that size. So now when I go to my resizable clip page on my OBS, look at that. It looks like a nice 1920 1080. It's very beautiful, and you can set it to that and just basically set it and forget it. The game will remember it, RuneLite will remember it, and if it doesn't automatically load like that, then all you have to do is simply go over to your RuneLite settings, toggle it up one, down one, and you're good to go. Another thing you can do is you can lock the window size. So basically that'll do the same thing, where as soon as you load up RuneLite, it'll always be that size. And then you can also set it so it's always on top. Let's say you're playing a game like TFT or League or something, I don't know, Apex, some game on the side, but you want to have it so that maybe, the tiniest little bit of your RuneLite is like there or like there. That way you don't have to alt tab out of the game. You can just simply hover over, click it, and then boom, now you're doing stuff in the game here, and you can drag it over. This RuneLite settings thing here, man, these info boxes, this is probably my favorite part of it, is just you can customize a lot when it comes to that. But that is the RuneLite video. Same thing, where as soon as you load up RuneLite, it'll always be that size. And then you can also set it so it's always on top. Let's say you're playing a game like TFT or League or something, I don't know, Apex, some game on the side, but you want to have it so that maybe, the tiniest little bit of your RuneLite is like there or like there. That way you don't have to alt tab out of the game. You can just simply hover over, click it, and then boom, now you're doing stuff in the game here, and you can drag it over. I like having always on top sometimes, but not all the time. It's a feature that exists. This RuneLite settings thing here, man, these info boxes, this is probably my favorite part of it, is just you can customize a lot when it comes to that. But that is the RuneLite video. There's so many plugins out there, and I'm sure I missed a bunch. If I missed any that are super useful, let me know in the comments. I'll probably drop a heart next to that, or maybe even pin it if you got a big list of very useful ones. Who knows? Anyways, that is my video here. 20 RuneLite plugins that are useful, plus a couple of other special mentions. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you all, and happy scaping. Take care, everybody. All right, so it is time to pick the winner from the previous video, probably 2 or 3 videos ago. But on January 1st, I made a bank video, and I said every like this video gets will equal 10K GP I give away. So about 32 mil. If we look over here, I'm currently uploading a video right now, actually. But if we look over at my dashboard, there are 3,238 likes. So that's 32.38 mil. So 32,380K I'm giving away to one winner. And I said I would do it on the 8th. Today's the 11th, but there's only been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comments in the past 2 days. And 3 days ago would have been the 8th. So I guess if those 5 people win, maybe we'll re-roll, but it's pretty unlikely. So we're going to grab the link here, go to the YouTube random comment picker, paste in the video link, and we're going to do filter duplicate users. We don't want duplicates. Let's see. That's probably all we're going to do. Go get YouTube comments, and we're just going to load this up. I'm doing this legitimately live, recording it so that you guys know it's legit. And whoever wins this, congratulations to you. Amount of unique comments, 960. So now how does it pick a comment? How do I pick a winner? Let's see. Start and pick winner. Oh, there we go. That's how you do it. Okay. So this is how little I know about this. Stein Martinson. Let's see. Were they in the past 5, 3, 4, 5? They were not. Okay. So Stein Martinson. They said, Happy New Year, Zulu. Hey, Happy New Year to you, man. Congratulations. You won yourself 32 mil. It looks like they are a channel that, does watch some YouTube content. I see Bodhi here. They watch some RS. They follow more plates, more dates. Cool. Or more delts, more delts. That's funny, actually. Anyways, congratulations to you, Stein Martinson. I'm going to reply to your comment as well. I'll find your comment in there, and we'll get you paid. All right, so I found the guy's thing. I searched for his name through the comments, and Happy New Year, Zulu. He's publicly subscribed. I'm gonna like his comment, heart his comment, pin his comment, and oh, my reply went away. Oops. So I'm gonna type just a congrats. You won 32.38 mil. Add me on sub to Zulu so I know when you're on. Oh, I need to tell him to tell me his RSN. Let me know your RSN and add me on sub to Zulu so I know when you're on. Happy New Year. Pinning this comment so you know it's legit. Smiley face. Reply. There we go. Hopefully this guy will reply soon. He is publicly subscribed, so I'm sure that he may get the notification. And obviously I just pinned his message too and liked it and all that stuff. So he probably is going to get some notifications for that. And we'll see when he gets paid out. Oh, this guy logged in. Dude, speaking of timing with good luck and purges, this guy is the guy who won. Yo. Want to claim your GP now? Smiley face. This is the guy, Nobby Lad. He is the one who won the giveaway for my bank video. You guys will go ahead and take a look at this. I recorded it. It's going to be in one of my next couple videos showing the giveaway. But where is it? We go here. We go to comments. Happy New Year. I rolled this guy's name earlier, told him he won. He said, wow, thanks. RSN is Nobby Lad. I double checked that it was the same account and not somebody who just made an account. It's the same account. I went and double checked that. So I added him. He won 32.38 mil. And he's here. He says, hey, yes. 313 GE entrance. I'll be there in a sec on also Zulu. Here we go. Okay, trading him right now. Trading Nobby Lad. It was 380K because there was 3,238 likes on the video. 10K per like. Congratulations, Nobby Lad. I am YOLO Scope. You actually are. That's crazy. That guy's actually a viewer of the stream too. That's crazy, man. Congratulations. GZ. Thanks for supporting the videos, man. Happy New Year as well. That was your comment on the video. We're looking at it right now. Happy New Year, Zulu.